I have a serious question to ask you today. What is the mission of Christianity? And the next question I have to ask you, since Christianity is centered around Christ, the Messiah, as we know as Yahushua HaMashiach, what was his mission on earth? Today, let's discuss empathy and compassion. And we know that empathy is in the news these days because of a certain individual who allegedly was killed recently. And that person said they had no empathy. They didn't believe in empathy, yet claimed to be a Christian. So let's read the dictionary's definitions of empathy and compassion. Empathy: the ability to identify with or understand another's situation or feelings. Synonym: pity. The attribution of one's own feelings to an object. The intellectual identification of the thoughts, feelings, or state of another person. Okay, so that's empathy. Compassion: deep awareness of the suffering of another accompanied by the wish to relieve it. Synonym: pity. Literally, suffering with another, a sensation of sorrow by the distress or misfortunes of another. Pity, commiseration. Deep awareness of the suffering of another, coupled with the wish to relieve it. Now, synonyms for empathy include compassion, understanding, sympathy, and kindness. These words reflect the ability to share and understand the feelings of others. If you know anything about the Bible, which Christians claim to, but actually don't for the most part, Yahushua had compassion on people. That's why he did the things that he did while he was on the earth. But I also want to talk about the antonyms or the opposites of empathy. Apathy signifies a lack of interest or concern for others' feelings. Indifference reflects emotional detachment, hindering the ability to connect with others compassionately. Disregard prioritizes individual needs over others' feelings, creating barriers to understanding and empathy. Hostility encompasses aggressive behaviors that obstruct empathetic communication and foster resentment. Callousness indicates insensitivity toward others' emotions, undermining the foundation of empathetic relationships. This indifference can perpetuate systemic issues as individuals become desensitized to injustice and suffering around them. Such apathy hinders collective action and fosters an environment where the needs of the marginalized go unaddressed. So there are many instances in scripture where Yahushua had compassion on the people. I'll talk about a few of them here today. Yahushua's main concern as he walked this earth was for the lives of the marginalized, the widows, the orphans, the sick, the infirmed, those who were downcast in society. He didn't come to make the rich richer. He didn't come to help them do that. He came concerned about their souls, but they weren't even concerned about their own souls. They didn't want to repent and turn from their life of riches. That's white Jesus's concern, is about the riches of whiteness. But that was not the concern of our Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. But this compassion that Yahushua had serves as a model for believers, emphasizing the importance of empathy, care, and a deep love for others. And this is actually how Yahushua began his ministry. And interestingly enough, this is actually how I began my ministry as well. My first sermon that I ever delivered was on the book of Mark. And I talked about these things among Black folks, among white folks, among the alleged Native Americans. I was in a mixed congregation of people, and I was sharing these things with the people. What I learned over all these years since I delivered that message is that Christians, for the most part, are not compassionate or empathetic to the needs of others. Let's talk about Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1, verse 1, the beginning of the gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, the son of Elohim. And so basically what we see here in chapter 1 is that the Messiah was baptized by John, and he went to the wilderness after that. And once he came out of the wilderness, he began healing people that were sick because he had compassion on them. He did what his Father in heaven sent him here to do. He sent him to look after the sheep. And what else did Yahusha do? He found followers that were in like mind with him, who wanted to also go out with him and heal the sick. He came across James and John, brothers, who were fishermen. And he basically asked them to join him and become fishers of men. And as a lifelong Christian from childhood, that's what I understood Christianity to be. As you go out and you learn the ways of the Messiah, and you go out and do the things that he did while he was walking the earth, and to have compassion upon people. So Yahusha went into the synagogue and he taught on Shabbat, and he taught these things to the people, and the people were astonished. Like, what kind of teaching is this? What's going on here? And he taught with such authority that he wasn't like the scribes. He wasn't like the Pharisees. He taught with authority because he was teaching the words that the Father gave him to speak, and he came out and did the things that the Father told him to do. And in that very synagogue was a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, "What are you here doing with us, Yahusha of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know thee who you art, the Holy One of Elohim." Yahusha rebuked him and saying, "Hold thy peace and come out of him." And the unclean spirit came out of him after making a loud sound. Everyone around was amazed, and they asked themselves, "What is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority commandeth he even the unclean spirits, and they do obey him." So if we're to look at Christianity as a whole in America, let's just keep this focus on America, since that's where I live and many of you live as well. If we look at Christianity in America, which of these Christians are out doing these very things? Which ones have compassionate empathy toward their brethren, other people? Which ones? How many of them do you see out healing the sick and cleansing lepers? Not very many. They're out collecting money. They're out planting churches. They're out stealing from the saints. They're out doing their dark mason work among the people, enchanting their followers. There's plenty of churches out here in America. There's churches on most corners in most towns. And they are not out here doing any of the work that Yahusha walked this earth and did and set as a demonstration and an example for what the Father would have them do. As we know of Christianity in America, these white folks came over here from Europe, took our people captive, and forced them into a new religion called Christianity. And they did that with violence and death. That's not what Messiah did. He didn't operate in violence. He didn't operate in death. Matter of fact, he brought people back to life. Matter of fact, when violence was executed in front of him, he restored the soldier's ear in front of the people and said, "No, this isn't the way. This violence with the sword is not the way." Yet, white Christianity says violence with the sword is the way. That's the truth and the life for them. But that's not what the Messiah came to earth to do. He didn't come to commit violence. He didn't come to kill. But that's what white Christianity has done. And that version of Christianity has spread across the land. It's a false religion. And there's still plenty of us that are caught up in that religion today. But those of us who have come out of that religion know that that is a false religion because it's the exact opposite of what Messiah came to this earth to do. The Messiah started his ministry casting out demons and giving comfort to people. He started his ministry by laying hands on people who were sick of fevers and healed them. He cleansed lepers and those of many diseases, cast out many devils, and told the devils not to speak. And they didn't because they knew who he was. I want to focus in on Mark chapter 1, verses 40 through 42. And there came a leper to him, beseeching him and kneeling down to him, and saying unto him, If thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And Yahusha, moved with compassion, put forth his hand and touched him, and saith unto him, I will, be thou clean. And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed. That was at the beginning of his ministry. These are the things he did in the beginning of his ministry. It didn't take him 15, 20 years of being out here ministering, and then finally he's got enough power and authority to go out and heal the sick and cleanse the lepers. No, he did this immediately coming out of the wilderness, where he was tempted with all manner of sin, and he rejected it all. That's not what happens in Christianity. Christianity says, oh, we're all sinners saved by grace. Oh, we're just sinners. Oh, we fall down, but we get up. That's not what Messiah did. The Messiah came out the gate healing people and casting out demons. The reason I mentioned to you Mark 1, 40 through 42 is for a very specific reason. As we've discussed in many of my videos, leprosy is whiteness. Leprosy is whiteness. As we know, the people of the book were copper-colored people, bronze-colored people, bronze-skinned people. And the way that people knew that they had leprosy is they had white scales, white sores all over their bodies. That's how people knew that they had leprosy. And they were cast out of the camp because leprosy is a communicable disease. And that means that it's easily spread by the contact of other people. So basically, touching someone else could give them leprosy. Sharing clothing could give them leprosy. Eating foods together, drinking drinks together, you can get leprosy. It's communicable. It's a disease that is spread by contact with people. And that's what whiteness is. That's what whiteness has been in this country. A disease communicated through the touching and contact with other people. No different than how when the whites came over and stepped foot on this land, they brought smallpox and spread it all across the land and killed off masses of people. And see, I pointed out in that scripture that the leper kneeled before the Messiah, the Master, and said to him, if you will, you can make me clean. He didn't ask him if he could. He didn't beg and plead with him to do it. Please, 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 would you please? I'll give this, that, and the other. On my dead mom, if you heal me, I'll do this and that and that. No, he didn't do any of that. He didn't negotiate. He didn't make any sort of terms. He said, I know that you can. Will you? But he knelt down before him and asked him. He knelt at his feet. And that's the one thing whiteness will never do. Whiteness will never kneel at the feet of the Messiah. And we now know that it's because this person, Jesus, that they created, this white individual that they created, was not the real Messiah. Yahusha, the bronze-skinned man with hair like wool, is the Messiah. And they will never kneel before a man that looks like that. And that's why they'll never be cleansed of the leprosy that they have. And that leprosy has spread all over the land, from sea to shining sea, from border to border. That whiteness has permeated the land, and it's overcome our people. It's overcome Asians. It's overcome Hispanics. It's overcome Native Americans. It's overcome Africans. It's overcome all manner of people, because it's a communicable disease. It's a disease that people don't see as a disease. They see it as the come up, because the fallen angels are white. They're white. They are leprous. And just like in civilizations past, people wanted to look like the gods of the land. Whether it be the enlarged skulls, they wanted their skulls enlarged. Whether it be any manner of characteristics that these gods and goddesses and pharaohs had, the people then in turn wanted to be like gods. So they patterned themselves after these gods. That's what's happened with whiteness in this world, in this country. The people want to side up with whiteness so that they can be like them, the gods of this land. So when we come back to what is Christianity, Christianity is being like the fallen angel gods that preside over the land. It means slaughtering people who are the children of the Most High, the copper-colored and bronze-skinned people. It means destroying any and all groups of people who stand in the way of whiteness. Yahusha had compassion on people and he healed them. And as we discussed before, compassion means caring about the plight of others. Romans 12:15 says that we're to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. That means you're supposed to care about what other people are going through, care about their suffering, and put forth effort to alleviate that suffering. That's what our Messiah did when he walked the earth. That's not what your average Christian does. Many of the discussions I've had with white people about religion and about the current events of the day, whenever I had to talk with white people after one of our people were slain and it made national news or even local news, and white people go on their little tirades about, oh, he was no angel, this, that, and the other, my question to them has always been, what if this were your son that got slain by the police? What if this were your daughter who got raped and slain by a random citizen? What if this were your spouse that was slaughtered in the streets? And you watch their heads drop and then they mumble something. That's demonic right there. That's demonic right there, because before you had no problem telling me your thoughts and feelings on things when it was Black people that we were discussing being slaughtered in the streets. But now that I've turned the tables on you and asked you to put yourself in those shoes, now you can't do it. And that's what has happened with this individual who recently allegedly got killed. Now all these white folks are triggered because they're seeing themselves as that person that got slain. They are seeing their sons and daughters and spouses and cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents as that person that got slain. They didn't have any compassion or empathy when they saw our people being slain. There's countless videos on the internet of our people being killed every day in traffic stops, just in regular everyday situations. But they didn't have any compassion or empathy then, and this is allegedly a Christian nation? And I have to tell you, I believed that as a child. I believed that this was a Christian nation. That's what they taught us. But I now know that what I knew as Christianity, what the Bible talks about, the mission of the Messiah, is not Christianity. Christianity is about rape, murder, torture, and genocide. And that's what these white devils do all over this country. And that's what they do all over the world. They don't show compassion and empathy toward anyone that is not them. Galatians 6:2 tells us to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Mashiach. That's an act of empathy. This verse highlights the importance of supporting each other and reflecting the love of Mashiach by sharing and alleviating other people's struggles. That's not what Christianity is really about. They're about perpetuating those struggles and pointing them out and mocking people as others until that misfortune lands on their doorstep. 1 Peter 3:8, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted and courteous. Is that what your average Christian's out doing? That's another form of empathy. No. Colossians 3:12, therefore, as the elect of Elohim, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, and long suffering. When's the last time a white person was kind, humble, and meek and long suffering toward you while you were going through hard times and difficulties? Never, thank you. Hebrews 4:15, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. So basically, he went through all of the types of sins that we are confronted with every day, and he didn't sin, and he was still compassionate toward others. He empathizes with our weaknesses and reassures us that he understands our struggles because he's experienced those same human temptations and emotions. And that makes him a compassionate intercessor. When's the last time white folks interceded for you? Never. Okay, thank you. Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim in Mashiach forgave you. When's the last time you felt any sort of forgiveness from white people? Never. Okay, thank you. Matthew 7:12. Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Do white folks treat us like they want to be treated? But they expect to be treated like they're on pedestals, but they treat us like we are scum. That's empathy and understanding. They don't have it. Philippians 2:4, let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. That's empathy right there. Caring about the interest of others and to look beyond your own problems and concerns and actively consider the well-being and needs of others. Do they do that? No, they are only concerned with their own lives, their own struggles. That's why you're hearing everybody crying on the internet now. You're hearing all these white folks crying on the internet about price of groceries, the price of life. How are y'all out here lifing? They don't give a damn about it when it's you. And like I told y'all in the previous video, that this whole grocery store price situation is because of how they did our people. They didn't care when we couldn't afford groceries for our families. They didn't care when prices were too high because we were living in food deserts. They didn't care about the lives of our children. They want our children dead. That's why they put all the Planned Parenthoods in black communities. These same people that allege that they hate abortion put abortion clinics in our neighborhoods because they wanted our people dead. This is eugenics. They want our people dead so that they can stay on top. Well, the Father has turned the tables on them. Romans 15:1. We then who are strong ought to bear with the scruples of the weak and not to please ourselves. When do they ever support the weak? When do they ever support the less fortunate? They only prioritize their own needs over everyone else. Proverbs 31:8-9. Open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. When do they speak out for those who don't have voices? When do they advocate for the vulnerable? And I'm not talking about the fact that they all want to advocate now for the LMNOP people. I'm not talking about that. They always got some other group that they're going to put over us. I'm not talking about them. Those people are already living in sin. They don't have any care or concern or compassion or empathy for the oppressed. 1 John 3:17. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of Elohim abide in him? It doesn't. Because white folks never want us to have the things that we need or want. And then they want to mock us because we don't, when they're the reasons why we don't. They want to spit on us and put their boot on our necks. But they're not demonstrating the love of Elohim by meeting our needs. You show empathy through tangible actions, things that actually can help people, not just shouting out thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers! But notice that's the thing they always come with. Remember, I've told y'all before, white folks all speak the same language. Thoughts and prayers? How many dozens and hundreds and thousands of times in the last several years have you heard the phrase thoughts and prayers? That's whiteness. They're not thinking about you and they're not praying for you. But you know what they're doing? They're praying upon you. Luke 10:33-34. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. When's the last time a white person ever did that for you? When's the last time a white person ever bent down, got off their high horse, and saw about your needs and healed you and provided any sort of relief to you? A cool cup of water, bandaging your wounds, even listening to you express your concerns about racism without them interfering and interjecting and telling you you don't know that person's heart that was racist towards you. You don't know their heart? Well, you do? How do you know their heart? How do you know what's in somebody else's heart? Because they're all related. They all have the same spirit. You know what the scripture says about the heart? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. That's how you know what's in somebody's heart. What comes out of their mouth. Whatever comes out of their pie hole is what is in their heart. You need to remember that. 1 Thessalonians 5:14. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, and uphold the weak. Be patient with all. When's the last time any white people were compassionate about you and what was going on with you and was patient with you? Think about the workplace. White folks can have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 infractions that are worthy of being fired, and they still have their job. You commit one infraction and you're out the door as a black person. That's not long suffering. That's not patience with all. Isaiah 58:10. If you extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light will dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the noonday. They have no desire to help the needy. They have no desire to bring light and joy. And that light and joy is for both the giver and the receiver. But they don't have light and joy within them. That's why they can't give it, and that's why they shouldn't receive it from you, true Israel, American black people. Job 2:11. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place to mourn with him and comfort him. Tell me, when's the last time white people came and mourned with you and comforted you? Do they mourn and comfort with you when you share what's going on about the latest Black person that was slain in the streets? Or do they mock that person and say that they weren't an angel and they were a drug addict and this and that and the other, and that's the reason they died wasn't because of what the police officer did, it was because they were a drug addict? Isn't that interesting? Because whiteness are drug addicts for the most part, whether it be street drugs or whether it be pharmaceuticals from Big Pharma. Most of these white people out in these streets are addicted to drugs. But they would have you believe that our people are the ones addicted to drugs for the most part. But you know what's interesting? Most Black people can't get their hands on the type of painkillers that they need when they actually need them. Because if you go back to days of slavery, they don't believe that we feel pain. But these bastards are out here complaining about the smallest little thing, and they get all of the painkillers that they need from the doctor. Those scripts be getting written, but they don't get written for our people for the most part. Job went through so much distress, and his friends came and comforted him and mourned with him. Tell me, when was the last time your alleged white friend came and mourned with you and comforted you while you were suffering? Yeah. Zechariah 7 and 9. Thus saith Yahuwah Sabaoth, execute true justice, show mercy and compassion everyone to his brother. We call for justice in this country, and white folks rebel against it. They don't want justice for us. They want justice for themselves, but not for us, because we're not their brothers. Those are fallen angels. How can you be a brother or a sister to a fallen angel unless you're one too? John 11:35. Yahusha wept. This verse right here was the verse that was prayed in my house every day as a child. My grandparents weren't Christians. They were spiritual people, but they weren't Christians. They sent me to church, but they weren't Christians themselves. And now I understand why. But the prayer that was prayed before meals in my house, my grandfather said every day, Jesus wept. And then we began eating. Why? Because the Messiah weeps for people. He empathizes with people. It's the shortest verse in the Bible, and it illustrates Yahusha's empathy as he wept at the death of Lazarus. And he shared in the sorrow of those people who were around him who were weeping as well. Our people have done nothing but weep, whether we do it aloud or whether we do it silently. We have wept. We have shed tears from sea to shining sea, from border to border in this country. And the fathers collected each and every one of those tears in a bottle. And he's going to execute justice and judgment upon those who have caused that weeping to occur. And that's whiteness. Even the problems that are in our communities was caused by whiteness. It was caused by what they did to our people. That trauma lives in our bodies as Black people in America. The broken families is because white people broke up our families and sold us off down the river to other plantations, to other slaveholders. They broke up our families, and then they want to sit up and talk about us in our single parent homes. Yet we are only 12 to 13% of the population in this country, which means that they are actually the ones with single parent homes in much more multitude than us. But they want to talk down on us. Where's the compassion? Where's the empathy? Romans 12 and 10. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another. When's the last time a white person gave you preference over another white person? Never. Exactly. Exactly. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. This verse highlights the enduring nature of true friendship. And a friend is someone who supports and empathizes with others, especially during their difficult times. A friend isn't only there for the laughs and giggles and the good times. A friend is also there when you are going through it. And they are supporting you. They're holding your hand. They're hugging you. They're patting you on your back and telling you, sweetheart, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. Tell me, when was the last time white people did that toward black people? Tell me, when was the last time a white person did that toward you in a personal interaction with them? Exactly. Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does Yahuwah require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. When's the last time you saw a white person walking humbly with Elohim? A, they're not humble. And B, who is their Elohim? Satan. That's who they will humble themselves for. But as we know with Satan, anybody who is inhabited by Satan is an arrogant prick. Pardon my language, but you know it's true. They're arrogant, they're boastful, they're proud. That's what their father sows into them, and that's what they execute. The true Elohim, Yahuwah, and his son Yahusha do not plant those seeds of arrogance and pride within their followers. Galatians 5:14. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Tell me, when's the last time that you felt that white folks loved you as they love themselves? I can't think of any. And I've had multitude of interactions with white folks. And believe it or not, the majority of those interactions have been about religion. This verse encapsulates the essence of the law, urging believers to treat others with the same empathy and care that they would want for themselves. But the thing is they don't have empathy or compassion, but they want you to treat them as if they are kings and queens, and they are going to treat you like you are serfs and servants to them. It's the same spirit from the days of slavery. Nothing has changed. Luke 6:31. And just as you want men to do to you, you also do to them likewise. That's what's called the golden rule. That's what people will tell you is the golden rule of Christianity, is to treat others like you want to be treated. But we don't see white people doing that. James 1:27. Pure and undefiled religion before Elohim and the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. When's the last time you saw white folks have care, compassion, and empathy for any of our widows and orphans? Well, they're the ones that made the widows and orphans be in the state that they're in. They slaughtered the husbands. They slaughtered the parents. And that's the generational trauma that flows through black folks' veins every single day in this country. They don't give a damn about it because they're the ones that created the condition. Matthew 5:7. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. So if you are merciful, then you can expect to receive mercy in return. But if you're not merciful, then why should you expect to receive mercy? And that's where we are right now. I've told y'all numerous times, the Father told me on January 1st, 2021, that he has removed the hedge of protection from whiteness. I've also told you all that the Father has removed mercy and grace from them. And if they did not offer mercy to us, What makes you think that the Father's going to reciprocate mercy to them if that's not what they showed his children? No. Just like I've told y'all before, the Father told me there won't be any reparations, only recompense. The Father's going to repay them for what they have done. And that's what's demonstrated by this verse here in Matthew 5 and 7. They weren't merciful, so therefore they will not obtain mercy. Romans 13 and 10. Love does no harm to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. Like I told y'all at the beginning of this, Christianity is not a religion that is about love. It's about dominance, control, genocide, steal, kill, and destroy, just like John 10:10 says. Steal, kill, and destroy. That's Christianity. That's not the narrow path demonstrated by Yahusha as he walked the earth, doing his Father's will. They do everything they can to make sure that they harm us every day. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, this harm that they have done to our people ever since they landed on the shores of this country. The harm has perpetuated over and over and over throughout the generations. But they expect love and mercy from us. That's rich. Ephesians 4 and 2, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. That verse encourages humility, gentleness, patience. And those are the qualities that support and understand others and what they're going through. And these folks do not contain any of that. They don't bear with us. They don't bear burdens with us, just like they didn't bear burdens with us when we were enslaved. They sat on the porch drinking mint juleps while our people worked in the blazing sun from sun up to sundown, and then worked for them until time to go to bed, serving them, raising their children, tending to their crops, feeding them, cooking for them, cleaning up after them. What did they do? And if you think back to what happened after slavery ended, these white folks didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to do anything. That's why these A&M schools were started, to teach them how to farm. Isn't that interesting? They didn't know how to do anything. And our people, feeling compassion for them, a lot of our people went back and worked for them and expected wages. And that's how sharecropping began. And they did us dirty even during the sharecropping days. They underpaid us. They sold us stuff from their company stores at inflated prices. They charged us outrageous sums to work the land as if we weren't the ones working it. Like, oh, you can come work for me on this land. Yeah, you're not a slave anymore. I might pay you. I might not. You can come buy all the seeds and stuff from me and all the amendments to the soil that you need. You can come buy all those from me at inflated prices, and I might pay you for the crop, maybe. But you're going to give me the crop. Proverbs 11 and 17. The merciful man does good for his own soul, but he who is cruel troubles his own flesh. That's where we are right now in this country. Because they weren't merciful to us and they were cruel, now that cruelty is at their doorstep. It's in their homes. It's in their shopping carts. The Father has turned the tables on these bastards, and they are reaping what they have sown. They sowed evil seeds, and now they're reaping those rewards. Now they can't afford to live, just like our people couldn't afford to live. Mercy benefits both the giver and the receiver. We've talked about this before. But they don't have mercy for our people. But they expect mercy. That doesn't make any sense. That is the definition of insanity. It's expecting what you don't give. And many of us in true Israel, we were married to people like this. The Father allowed us to be yoked up with unbelievers who expected us to serve them as if they were pharaohs and pharaohettes in our lives, and they gave nothing in return. They gave nothing in return. That's a fallen angel. A fallen angel who rules over the land and does nothing for the people. The people provide all the labor. The people provide all the monetary wealth for the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh spends it as he or she sees fit. And you're left with nothing. And then they vacuum up all the rest of your resources and your love and your empathy and your compassion. They vacuum all of that up for themselves. And they leave you destitute, crying on the floor at night in a corner, wondering what's wrong with you. Why can't I get ahead? Why do I feel like I'm suffering every day? That's what it's like to be married as a believer in Messiah until the Father provides you a spouse that is a believer. But you have to seek him to find that spouse. You can't just go with what looks good, because what looks good will break your heart every time. And that's what I was talking about earlier about whiteness being a communicable disease. Whiteness looks good on the outside. It looks like they're ahead. It looks like they're on top. It looks like they're doing things the right way. It looks like they're following the law, but they're not. They're doing what they want. Do as thou wilt. That is their whole law. And that's occultism. And that's what they've made Christianity into. Occultism. Matthew 14:14. And when Yahushua went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. Compassion leads to action. He had empathy for the people around him who were sick, and he took action to heal them. And if you're a true believer in the Most High, you should be able to do the very things that Messiah did. Didn't he say in the word that you will do greater things than me? Why is that? That's because his ministry was only 3 years. You're going to be out here doing this work longer than me. That's why you're going to do more than me. Think about that. You're supposed to be out here healing the sick, cleansing lepers, raising the dead, casting out demons. That's what you're supposed to do as a believer in Mashiach. But folks aren't out here doing that. And those of us who have the ability to do so, we are hindered in every way possible. It's magic. It's sorcery. Just like I talked about a minute ago about those of us who are true believers in true Israel, we were yoked up with unbelievers. They did everything they could, and they do everything they can to hinder your ability to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out demons. Why? Because A, they are sick. B, they are lepers. C, they are dead. And D, they are demon possessed. The same way that, like I told y'all about earlier in chapter 1 of Mark, the demons cried out, "What are you here doing with us? Why are you here to destroy us?" That's what that ungodly spouse that's yoked up with you as true Israel, that's what they do. Why are you out here trying to stop the demonic stuff that we're out here trying to do? Why are you out here trying to heal yourself? I'm the one made you sick. And if you think about it, true Israel, if you've been married for any extended period of time to an unbeliever, think about all the times you've been sick throughout that marriage. Now think about what your life was like before that marriage. Were you sick as often? Because their job was to make you sick and make you unable to heal yourself. And if you also think about this, think about the fact that you could pray for that unbelieving spouse and they would be healed. Why? Because they only cared about themselves. Therefore, they will take your prayers for healing and they will be healed because they know that the Messiah that lives inside of you, the spirit that's in you, can heal the sick. They'll willingly accept your healing. And those of you black folks that are out here laying your hands on white people and praying for them and healing them, you are healing them so that they can come and oppress you even more. And that is the same case with that unbelieving spouse. You are healing them so that they can further oppress you. You are healing them so that they can further hinder your ability to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. And that end of that scripture says, freely you've been given, freely give. And those of us who are true believers know what that means. It means we're supposed to go out and do those things because it's been freely given to us. Now, tell me which white people are out doing that. Zero. Yeah. Last verse, 1 John 4:11. Beloved, if Yahuwah so loved us, we also ought to love one another. This is another verse that inspires us to have empathy for people. Because Yahuwah's immense love for us, we should extend that love and empathy toward other people, reflecting his character in our relationships. So if you're not doing that, you don't have the love of Elohim in you. You don't have the love of Christ in you. These verses that I shared with y'all today are to show y'all that the person who Christianity was allegedly named after had compassion and empathy for people. He constantly taught it. His father constantly shared what to do, how to help people. The Messiah came on this earth to demonstrate and give an example of what it looked like to have compassion and empathy upon others, to heal them of their infirmities, to be with them and to come alongside them in their struggles and their heartaches, to have mercy upon them and to cleanse them of those same infirmities. Christianity doesn't do any of this. It causes the infirmities. It causes you to be sick. It causes you to die. It causes you to be leprous. And it causes you to be filled with demons and surrounded by demons. So take a look at the people around you. Take a look at these alleged Christians out here. See how they operate. See how they move. See what they're dealing with. And take notes. And then think about these things I've shared with you today. The definition of compassion and empathy. Do they have that? No. They don't give a damn about the children of the Most High. They're never going to cleave with us, because to cleave with us means that you have to separate yourself from the tree that you came from, the evil rootstock that you came from, to bow down at the feet of a new rootstock and to connect yourself to that tree. That's what cleave means. That's what it means to be grafted in. Grafting in is an agricultural term where you take a branch from a different rootstock and you plant it onto a new rootstock. That's what it means to be grafted in. That's why Esau is never going to be grafted into Jacob. And that's why Esau will have none remaining, just like the scripture says. Use this same barometer for all of the people around you, whether it be your unbelieving spouse or your spouse who alleges to be a believer, your co-workers, your friends, your siblings, your children. Do they have compassion? Do they have empathy? Do they have love for one another? Or are they only concerned with themselves? Think about the people who've asked you to pray for them. Have they ever prayed for you? Think about the people around you that make you sick and make you wonder and worry and doubt. Those aren't believers. Those are demons, devils, and fallen angels. Compassion serves as a model for believers, emphasizing the importance of empathy, care, and a deep love for others. And that's how our Messiah began his ministry. What's your ministry about?